You're tuned in to the MtG Cabal cast, where they cover Magic, the Gathering Finance. All right? You don't know about it? You're tuned in right now and get ready to learn some shit. Buckle your seatbelts and light a blunt and get ready for the MtG Cabal cast. Starring Reptar and Thirsty, them onion head motherfuckers.
Alrighty, guys. Welcome to the newest episode of the Cabalcast. And this week, we're going to take a look at some things that aren't necessarily MTG Finance related, but they are related to the state of the game, which is related to that. And that's basically, what are some things that we see, like if we could pick two things to fix that we think are the most important things to fix in Magic to get it back to a glory days state. Not like it will be, it's obviously a new era, things are different, but to get it back to be the big guy, for people to not think that this game is dying, for people to think that this game is being run by people who care and who want to make it better. Mm-hmm. What are the things that we would fix? And with that, let's get it taken away.
So for me, I think the biggest one, it took me a while to really put my finger on this one, is that I think the game really, at this point in time, is struggling for an identity, and so we need to know what the identity of this game is. And right now, I think there are two identities. WotC wants us to believe in OP, that you can play Magic competitively, easily, that the road is straightforward enough to the Pro Tour and Worlds, that OP is engaging, and that climbing the ladder is a desirable thing to be doing. But in the interim, the game focuses at the LGS level down to the individual content creator on Commander. We've all kind of coalesced around that. And if you go back and you start watching individual contributors in the space, you'll see a lot of them coalesce on Commander. The Professor, still does his box breakdowns, the box reviews, Commander. Good Luck High Five, Maria and Megan, they still do the Magic News thing, but now they're playing Commander. Brian Kibler and started Commander at home. MTG Goldfish, a huge focus of that platform is now Commander. They have a podcast about it, a video podcast, I think is either the same thing or a glom onto that. And they have their Friday videos. Star City Versus has pulled back from everything that isn't Commander. So what then is the identity of this game? It's hard not to look for the Commander cards in a set once you know they will be there, because they often overshadow the cards made for Constructed. And while there is a desire to kind of juice both Commander and Standard, and in the case of Direct to Modern sets, Modern, there's ridiculous overlap in what's going on here. It's no longer this very kind of obvious, and this is a bad example because it was played in Standard a little bit, like the Panharmonicons of this set are meant for Commander, and the aggressively costed
Paradox Engine.
Yeah, that's a good one, Paradox Engine, right? The Paradox engines of the set are meant for Commander. Meanwhile, the low-to-the-ground aggressive threats are meant for Constructed. Sure. Then what are Tiny Bones, Simulacrum Synthesizer, and Bristly Bill meant for? Those are all incredibly powerful Standard cards. Granted, they don't have a home right now. And just as powerful, if not more, Commander cards. We're no longer looking at cards like Paradox Engine or something like a Panharmonicon, which is maybe it's good enough in Standard or not. No, we're looking at cards that are just ridiculously powerful in Commander. I mentioned a 1-drop, a 3-drop, and a 2-drop. Two of them are Commanders. And 3 cards that could actually make a big impression on Standard once things change this fall or the next, because OTJ is going to be around for so long. People are already working on Simulacrum Synthesizer in both Modern and Legacy. Granted, the downfall of that card is the card Dress Down, but the fact of the matter remains is that this has immediate impact in both of those formats. What is the identity of this game going to be in the long run? I don't know, and that's something that I would look to fix about Magic.
And I think that part of it is, it's not a problem, and far be it from me to defend Wizards ever, but I'm a little out of character for this one. Part of it is not their problem because the game, I mean, Commander was a community-driven format.
Yeah.
The community naturally gravitated towards that as an identity. The problem is that, while that may have been the creation of the format, Wizards has very clearly had a hand in crafting and curating the game to Commander since.
Yes.
They have. I lost track, honestly, of how many times organized play, the Pro Tour, competitive Magic has changed in the last 6 years. But you can't, there are some people who say, oh, well, it's not Wizards' fault that the community gravitated towards that. It's not Wizards' fault that that community was created, but Wizards has definitely had a hand in curating a space which is almost completely devoid of your constructed formats. Mm-hmm. That, like you said, these cards, everything is now Commander, 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 Commander. When we used to get one Commander product a year, there was still room for constructed formats. Now we're getting 6 Commander decks a set, and it's just insane. So, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. You just need to, for lack of a better term, shit or get off the pot.
Yep.
It's either there is constructed or there is Commander. That's what we want our focus to be.
I saw a tweet thread, and I forgot. I think it starts with Martin Juza talking about the new Urza land from Modern Horizons, because Martin thought that it was legal in Modern. And you can see, like, first the staggering disbelief that this card is legal in Modern, the realization that it's not legal in Modern, the question about is this even good in Commander, and then Pyotr Golgolsky, I don't pronounce that terribly, comes in at the bottom and says, don't forget Modern Horizons 3 Commander, the Legacy set, or like the Direct to Legacy set, because that's what's happening as well. We're getting Commander decks with Modern Horizons 3 where the cards are not legal in Modern, they're legal in Legacy. And so there's the opportunity to also shift Legacy based on what's in those decks, not just the set itself, because we want to make a Commander product with every set now, including supplementals, which also seems like a wholly unnecessary step.
Why?
And I don't know, but it just continues to muddy the waters about what we're trying to do here with this game. What are we really supposed to be doing? And like, I completely forgot until this moment where WotC made outreach to a specific TO, I can't remember the name, that hosts CEDH tournaments, and said, hey, we will throw, whatever you need at you for tournament support as long as you say players can't play proxies. And they said, no, thank you, but good to hear, right? I think we talked about this last week.
Yeah.
Like, WotC is now looking to support CEDH as a tournament format. Like, okay, cool. Are we going to see that at a Pro Tour eventually? Honestly, maybe. We saw Legacy in the last 5 or 6 years.
That was so nice.
It was.
We almost saw Pauper. Fucking pandemic. Terrible.
All right. God, what a weird format. What do you got?
Format's great. I piggybacking kind of off of what I was just saying is figure out what you're doing with organized play and try to stick with it.
Yeah.
Again, it's been changed innumerable times in the last 6-7 years. I remember when they first announced the Pro League, and here's this really complicated ladder for how you can earn $70,000 a year to be a contracted player. And then one of the first people they had that they contracted got kicked off for something, and then Fabio Carvalho, who was caught cheating in a top 8 or something like that, was on there too. But you need something that promotes people going into an LGS to I'll call it a PTQ, whatever it is.
Yeah.
A clear ladder and a way for them to do well. And I think that one of the biggest things is when the old Magic Pro Tour existed, you could queue by going to PTQs. Mm-hmm. You could. You could also queue by literally just grinding your ass off for ELO.
Yeah.
And at weeklies. And there was a time where if you had enough points that you'd accrued off of grinding weeklies, you could queue for a Pro Tour off of that. Because that meant that now I don't have to dedicate my life to traveling to go to these things. I can stick locally, regionally, go to things that I do well in, that have a multiplier for my Planeswalker points that I can qualify for. I want them to get a system, and before I say anything else, I do want to say Huey has done a marvelous job with the task he's been given by Wizards of the Coast, because I'm sure he's hands behind his back for what he can actually do. And I know there's supposed to be another announcement. But make a way for people to strive for the Pro Tour that appeals to your grinders, your spikes, and your casual players. so that, you know what, I just want to go to a pro tour to see what it's like, but I just play FNMs every week.
Yeah.
But I'm the FNMN boss. Great, cool. Then you've qualified. You can now go. Get something, some clear-cut path that people know so that, hey, qualifying season is this, the pro tour is this, where do I go for it?
Mm-hmm.
Because right now we've got invites that qualify you for the next one for your continent, invites that qualify you for anywhere in the world. The qualifying season for one event might be completely different than the event itself, and it's really confusing, and it is a huge loss for the game, because to me, one of the great things about this game was this was a way for people to, back in the day, actually better their lives. You had large cash prizes for the Pro Tour. You had the Junior Super Series, where you could literally get a scholarship for college if you were a high schooler that did really well at a card game. And those are just opportunities that I think the company has missed over the years that give them a great opportunity to, one, interact in a positive way with their community. You want to, use a child for all of your marketing because she dresses up as an elf, maybe give her a scholarship to a college.
Would be nice.
If it be a great idea. It gives you a way to give back to the community, and it lets you actually run friendlier events, in my opinion, because now every event that I go to does something for me to get there. Yeah. I don't just have to go to these PTQs. I can grind it out, Wednesday night drafts, Friday night Magic, whatever. Bring those back and bring back some kind of system to qualify for everyone. It's simple. I don't understand why we can't make it easier and less confusing for people to queue for this. I know plenty of people that don't even care about the season once they queue. Give them a reason to care.
Yeah.
To me, the game is so intrinsically tied to the competitive nature and the health of your pro tour circuit or pro system or, high level play that can be rewarded outside of independent events, because it shouldn't be up to an independent tournament organizer to run something like Eternal Weekend. God, I love that Nick does, but it would sure, and I know there's some help there, but it would sure be nice if Wizards actually took the lead on some things and said, this is what we're going to do from now on. Mm-hmm. And they just don't.
Yeah. So that ties, like you said, into what I mentioned, which is just what is the identity of the game, and if you want to maintain that it's competitive, then you got to work within that. Something to lean into what you're saying, and this episode comes out after SCG Con Richmond. I don't know how many people actually know that Star City is running 3 what they're calling Super Sunday RCQs, Standard, Pioneer, and Modern, where there's no top 8 playoff, because all 8 competitors in the top 8 of each get an RC invite.
Yep.
But I don't know that people know that because Star City is now hosting RCs, that they're giving out 24 invites to the RC at Richmond. And it could be like that for the rest of the SCG cons that they have. They just have not scheduled, as far as I can tell, posted.
Yeah, there's nothing listed.
Else. But how many, to the OP side of things, how many people actually know that if you're on the East Coast and it's within distance, that they have such a robust invite system for the RCs.
Yep.
Like, that's insane. But Star City basically cut their teeth on a competitive circuit, not a commander circuit. That was always a tack on. And now they're furthering that idea by having large Lorcana events, large Fab events,
Star Wars
and large Star Wars
Fab, everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of pushing the convention side of things, where it's just kind of this general gaming convention, or this general card gaming convention. Imagine that they followed in the footsteps of TCG Con in that regard. And
only they're successful, unlike TCG Con.
I didn't want to mention it, but they're also bringing in Commander on the side. They've got a lot of personalities for Commander. They're bringing in a couple of the Commander versus guys, because Richmond's not too far and some of them can travel. So they're making a show of Commander as well, but it's no longer the highlight that it was a year or two ago. They're focusing more on competitive with the side of Commander. We know what Star City is doing. What WotC's doing is really weird, in the fact that there's no bridge or clear bridge from the LGS to the next step is still kind of ridiculous, aside from going to an RCQ to an RC to question mark, like the PT. But that only promotes going to your LGS for 2 events. How many RCQs can you run now as an LGS?
2.
2, yeah.
Yeah.
Like they're not asking you to keep going back to your LGS outside of those. You can spend the rest of your life on Moto and just show up to your LGS to play in the RCQs. That's not supporting the LGS. There's just not a lot going on there. But speaking of standard, the other thing that I would fix, and this might be the case, we're not really sure. We don't know what the product slate past Balloon Barrel looks like. I think that's the last standard set we know about.
Think so, yeah.
It's either that one or the slasher style set. But we don't know a lot about what's going on there. We know what the supplementals are, but we don't really know what's going on with the standard sets. Is to stop mucking around with standard sets and injecting this supplemental product into either the standard sets or the standard environment. And part of this was kind of a knee-jerk reaction to actually experiencing OTJ and what Big Score has done to like that limited environment. But at the same,
it's so dumb.
But at the same time, I took a step back, like literally and figuratively, when I was at my LGS on Monday to look at what was in the case. And at the end of the OTJ cards, there was Big Score, and I was just looking at those cards and thinking, like, man, it's so weird that they designed this other smaller set in parallel. Whether or not they would want to just put them into the main set or break them back out into packs doesn't matter, but there was individual development done on this stuff. It has some story points I don't think anybody cares about, but they just represent this really weird product that has such a warping effect on limited and standard in general, or at least the OTJ ones did. You know, like if you're looking at these cards as highly sought after, as cards that can have an impact, why are they outside the set? If you think they're going to impact standard or modern, why can't they be inside the standard set? Why do they have to be a supplemental product? Why do you have to dedicate the brain space to create the supplemental product? You know, are story reasons really a way to sell additional packs, as we learned with Aftermath? No. So you roll it into the main set, and now you have this weird additional slot in a pack that's non-representative of the story, because you just slammed it in there. So obviously that's not a reason. And now you have people chasing this supplemental product through purchasing the main set, which seems antithetical. Why not just put it all in the pack, add a standard collation so it's easy to engage with, it's easy to acquire, there's not a lot of logistical overhead on either end. Why do we need to spend the time with this product? And at the end of the day, I'm hoping that OTJ is the last set with it, but there's a really good chance that the next 2 or 3 sets probably have it, and it's going to be really obnoxious if they're back in the play boosters, because that makes, again, the limited format really weird and kind of miserable at times, and the acquisition of those cards very difficult, because I don't think they were in CBs either at all or the same rate that they were in regular packs. So you just create this like asinine product.
It's really strange to me that they do something like this right after they get rid of draft, and they merge 2 boosters because they're like, people are concerned about having too many products.
Yep.
Cool. But you didn't actually get rid of any products because you just put one inside the other at this point, is what it feels like.
They did say why, right? So that part at least makes sense. I just don't understand why we needed to play another shell game.
Yeah.
So to your point, why would you need set boosters, draft boosters, and aftermath boosters?
Yeah.
Right? Epilogue sets boosters is what they're, sorry, not aftermath. Epilogue set boosters. Like, why do we need 3? And then they, like you said, they brought it down from 3 to 1, they realized that the epilogue boosters weren't great. So instead of having 2, they just they made 2 into 1. And this isn't a chocolate and peanut butter kind of situation.
No.
I just question why even create the epilogue set in general separate from the standard set, because it seems like there's just not a lot of cohesion between the two at all.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to cite story reasons, I guess it made sense with Aftermath because everything was just going crazy, so you had the weird team-up cards in Aftermath. Like, cool, this is the Fallout. But then you have what was found in the vault. Okay? Loot was found in the vault, literally. The GT was found in the boot, in the vault. The simulacrum that I mentioned is found in the vault. Like,
in the vault.
It just doesn't... Why dedicate the brain space to creating this? It just goes back to what I said, I think I keep saying, it's just, you ask your designers and developers to do so much. It seems ridiculous to continue to tax them like this. Why can't they just create 4 standard sets a year and a supplemental? Why do you have to create 4 standard sets, some of them with epilogue sets, some of them not, some themed supplemental sets that will be like whole ass draft products?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, when do you stop? When do you give your employees time to pause? This is just, I'm going to continue to spin out. So go.
Okay. My last thing that I would fix, and this is something that I've harped on myself repeatedly, you've harped on, many podcasts have harped on, and that is, like, literally just make the LGS matter again.
Yeah.
Do something. I mean, give the LGS a way to profitably have Magic the Gathering and not care about what else happens. And look, to my prior point about RCQs being at an LGS, that's cool, but it doesn't fucking do anything for the store. Those people are not coming back. They're not doing that. Stores are starting to sell a sealed product because Wizards is selling on Amazon, and I get it. That's going to happen no matter what at this point.
Yep.
They will not end that gravy train. That's fine. Put your boxes up for above distro cost. That would be great. Do something that makes it seem like you care about the LGS. And this is something I know I've mentioned before. I'm going to mention it again. It's one of my favorite stories. I think it was Throne had some shipping delays.
Okay.
For boosters. I think it was Throne. It was one of the sets from that time that had shipping delays. And they sent an email out to the stores. It was like, hey, sorry, so there's been a delay. So you're not going to get anything but your pre-release product, at first. But don't worry, your players can still order boxes on Amazon.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Like, cool, thanks.
Oh, cool, thanks. Because at this point, D&D is not something that an LGS can do. You just don't buy the books because you can buy the PDFs online for a fraction of the price. Great, that's fine. I am okay with that. Those people weren't spending a lot of money anyways. I know that they're probably just going to get snacks and stuff like that when they're in, which is fine because they're polite. They don't take up a bunch of space, whatever. But when you are now getting into the secondary market as a manufacturer, which I know they say they don't care about the secondary market, but clearly they do.
Yeah.
Because we have the big score, we have the reprints we had in Fallout, we have secret lairs, we have the list. There are so many reasons they are now getting into the secondary market. Okay, fine. Be more selective on your reprints so that I, as an LGS, can stay profitable. Sell your product for more than what I can as an LGS so that people want to come to me. Because at the end of the day, Grandma's going to get Timmy his box of Thunder Junction on Amazon no matter what. She doesn't need to go to a store. She can order it off there. Mm-hmm. But I have customers, and I want to matter to them. And it is very difficult when the only things you're getting are, like, if you're a premium store, you get the super drops. Cool. Ampersand promos that happened once and never again. Mm-hmm. Cool. There's just not a lot of things that they're doing to promote a healthy ecosystem for the LGS that's making it appetizing for an LGS to carry Magic if they don't already, or to deal with Magic. There's a lot of LGSs here in the area that have dropped Magic as a game because Wizards has made it so unprofitable that they've said, you know what, I'm dropping out of this vertical and I'm going to get into like Pokemon or One Piece or literally anything else.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing for the longevity of the game, for the health of the game, for the game to stick around. The LGS is the absolute bedrock this game would not exist without an LGS climate.
Yep.
And it's more and more away from that. And I anecdotal evidence here. Story that is both terrible and amazing. Outlaws of Thunder Junction pre-release had 6 people playing. They came in together. They'd never played in a pre-release before. I'm like, all right, cool, great. Let's go over it with you, teach you the basics, run of the mill, whatever, and get you in. This is awesome. I have a new customer. They reported after one round or after one game because they were used to Arena. So you have also taken the play space from me now, because these people are learning the game in Arena, which, don't get me wrong, it's great, except you're not teaching them the actual game on Arena.
Yeah.
You're teaching them best of one.
Yep. Yeah, which is not
not the game. And it's sort of created this almost identity crisis for a lot of stores, because it's like, look, we do the thing, but do we really want to anymore? Yeah. Unless you have an incredibly entrenched, customer base like your store does. It's very difficult to justify running these events, carrying this product, when Wizards is doing everything they can to undermine you as the LGS as the de facto place to go.
Yeah.
They have taken the Gathering out of Magic the Gathering, and it sucks.
Yeah, and it you can look at it as it flows in either direction. It can flow all the way up to OP, or it can flow down to OP, but it doesn't matter, because you've got to start somewhere, like you said, playing the game to get through the OP cycle, which always involves playing in paper right now, which means not only do you need to acquire your cards, you need to be able to play somewhere. And if you're coming from Arena and you want to queue for the Pro Tour, I think you can still do it on Moto. I don't know if hitting a mythic number or whatever on Arena gets you anything anymore. But other than that, you've got to go through the RC system, which means playing at the LGS level. And so that raises its own series of concerns, like you said, when you're asking people to learn the game on Arena, and then if they want to move into the OP system and play at a professional level, engage with the LGS, which asks the players to play a completely different way than how they engage with Arena for the most part. Because yes, best of one constructed, best of one limited is how people engage with it, because it's meant to be a pick up and put down kind of thing, despite the fact that BO3 is on there. And I think at the end of the day, when you separate out everything that isn't issues with the cards proper, design, development, maintenance, whatever, everything else flows through the LGS in some way, shape, or form. The LGS is touched at every level, everything that happens. So I think it is an important issue that needs to be addressed. The LGS needs to be a more prominent part of the ecosystem, and WotC needs to not run it over.
Doing a good job of running it over right now.
Yeah, right. All right. Anything else you'd like to fix about the game before I move into picks?
There's tons, but we don't have time to cover it, let's take picks away.
That is fair. So this week, I am looking at O'Hare Axonal, I believe is how you pronounce it, the red O'Hare from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. It is 2 and 2 red for a 4/4 with trample. That has a lot of text. And the first bunch of text reads, if a red source you control would deal an amount of non-combat damage less than O'Hare Axonal's power to an opponent, that source deals damage equal to O'Hare Axonal's power instead. So if you lava dart your opponent to deal 1, O'Hare has a replacement effect that makes it 4. Then it has another ability. If it would die, return it to the battlefield tapped and transformed under its owner's control. And like the other O'Hares, it is a land. This one taps for a red and has an activated ability of 2 and a red. Tap it to transform the land back into the creature. Activate only if red sources you control dealt 4 or more non-combat damage this turn, and only as a sorcery, so you can't flip it at instant speed. And as we look at the stocks graph, after its stint at $40, it basically craters down to 10 and kind of levels out around the $8-9 mark, which is where we see it now. When I was taking my notes earlier in the week, CK was buying 59 at $7. They had 8 to sell at 12. There were 333 listings of LP or better on TCG Player for a market of $7.16. And those numbers have changed. So at the CK side of things, they're now buying 51 at $6. So they got a few, and so they dropped their buy price. And on TCG Player, there are now 357 listings with a market price of $7.34. So we're seeing more listings and a higher market price. I added this to my list at the beginning of March, and CK was buying 84 at $6.40, so we're seeing a drop in both numbers. They had 11 to sell at $8, so that's pretty much holding steady. Actually, no, sorry. They're now selling it for 12, my bad. That number's gone up by 1.5, and there were 298 listings on TCG Player for $7.55. So we had fewer listings at a slightly higher market. And so we're kind of coming back around to this now because it is kind of pulling out of this little bit of a tailspin that we've seen and selling decently. Now, unlike last week where we saw buy list quantity remain the same but the price go up, we're seeing quantity go down, price go down, and that's fine. This is not a card that you would necessarily want to pick up from the CK ecosystem, so buy list laggings, whatever. Interestingly enough, on TCG Player, the reason that we have more listings is because people are beginning to undercut, and I'll talk about that later because this is actually brand new. These listings that we're seeing were not here earlier in the week, and it kind of changes the way we're going to look at this card. Now, what does this card do in Commander? Well, basically, it's just enhanced tings. Anything that can ting, this enhances. So, O'Hara Axonal plays into a theme I basically like to call all gas, no brakes. It's similar to those of the Punisher. This card wants to push through a ton of damage as quickly as possible and shorten games before the deck succumbs to the curse of the mono red deck, which is we've drawn too many lands to function.
Yeah.
So we just want to shorten this thing up. So, well, how do we do that? We play cards that can spew damage around the board. Pyroclasm style effects. That can be enhanced to clear the board and deal a ton of damage to each player. So Pyroclasm deals 2. There are a number of cards that deal 1 all the way up to 3. Bumping it up to 4 basically can clear out a board pretty easily. And then we can just kind of, once we've cleared that out, just swing through. We can achieve this through punishing triggers similar to Pyrostatic Pillar effects. Whenever somebody plays a spell, they take damage. Or Mana Barbs effects, where when they actually tap a land for any reason, they take a damage. That ting is then enhanced by our O'Hare. And people basically get punished for playing the game, but it also ensures that things move at a decent pace. And we can even get as cute as Pyrohamia and keep a clean board state if we have some decent beaters. And by clean, I mean like of your opponent's creatures, because Pyrohamia has the same clause that Pestilence does. When there's nothing left on the board, no creatures, you sack it. Not great.
Stuffy doll.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Now, this isn't every casual player's dream, as it seems that a lot of players just want to enjoy games at their own pace, and O'Hara Axonal doesn't allow that to happen. It kind of sets the pace. So I don't think this applies to all casual Commander players, but I think this appeals to enough players that it's worth discussing, as the demand is here. And WotC has printed a number of cards that trigger to deal damage to all players, and this is kind of the like capstone Commander for that theme, finally. On a timeline, I see this selling right now, like the numbers are here, about 12 copies a day between LP and near mint, so we're moving it at an alright clip. The largest individual quantity within the first 50 listings was 2, now it is 9, which is a little interesting. And this is pretty easily a $9 card once those first... So there are now 72 listings on the first page, there were 59. So my numbers here are a little different. I had written once all 56 copies have gone, it becomes a $9 card. Based on what we're seeing now on TCG Player, this actually becomes a $9 card a lot faster than that. It's somewhere in the 30s. And after that, it just kind of trucks on. Now, vendors selling 4+ of this have set the floor at $9, which is great because it's not a big reach from where we are now. And from there, it actually climbs to 12 in a pretty organic fashion. To turn this around into the open market, probably about 2 to 3 months for a small profit, and in 6 months, that's basically when we're going to see maximum profit. Now, what I want to bring up is what I'm seeing today that is unique. Remember, CK is buying this card for $6 right now, $7.80 credit. And what I'm going to show you on TCG Player are a bunch of listings for under $6, which means there's cash profit to be had, credit definitely, and then listings that hit about $7. And once we get past those, which is in pretty quick order, this actually becomes an $8 card, and then we should start seeing there's $8.50. And do we hit $9 before the end of the page? Yes, we hit $9. We almost hit $10 before the end of this page. So between when I was taking my notes and now, this weird chunk in the middle sold, and people are now undercutting so we can arbitrage to CK and kind of artificially force the price back to what it would be in 2 weeks had whatever happened in the middle of this week not happened. And I don't know what that is because I literally took my notes and set this aside. I can go through the sales data at some point if people want to ask, and on Discord or on Twitter after they read this, we can take a look through this. But I don't know what happened. I'm excited about what I see in the open market, not what I see on CK. So that's why our timeline is probably about 2 to 3 months. But we can force it if we want to, or just organically see what happens. And I'm pretty sure we're going to make some decent money in the open market if we buy in now. Vendor buy lists were climbing, but not at a rate parallel to that of the open market. So I'd actually recommend tossing these in your binder first, listing on TCG Player in a few months, and then as a last ditch, look to buy lists. So I would start serving locals, like I said, then TCG, then buy lists. I don't know how well this plays at all local levels. Like I said, purely casual Commander players just want to play Magic. They don't want to have the pace set. So O'Hare is a little bit of a rub. That said, this seems to fit kind of like medium power tables, maybe something at a higher power level, because with Torbrand, things do get out of hand pretty quickly. You control both of those effects. You can apply them as necessary. There's a lot of cool things that could be done here, but not everybody appreciates playing against something like this. So here we are. Reprint equity. The O'Hare cycle is tied to Ixalan, and based on what we saw from our return to Ixalan, while WotC has shown a desire to upcycle the cards that flip into a land cycle, they have been almost entirely unique takes upon the return to Ixalan. So I think we saw Dowsing Dagger, otherwise everything else brand new. So I really doubt we see any of these outside of random splashes into Commander products. They seem like pretty easy toss-ins for the most part. Otherwise, like I said, we'd have to go back to Ixalan. We'd have to have WotC want to reprint them again, but they've shown an aptitude to not want to do that. So I think we're pretty good from a reprint standpoint. By quantity, I actually don't have that many. I've got 1 or 2 from opening the set, but I'd be happy to pick up a block to slowly trade these out. And seeing what we see on TCG Player right now, I'm actually kind of happier to do that because it is cheaper, but it also kind of plays into what we want to do with this card, which is own it for a little while and then turn it into cash.
Exactly, long enough to turn it into profit.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like this card a lot. I like the cycle. I think that this is, like you said, one of those casual EDH cards that, to me, it reminds me of a red enchantment with too much text, which we all know how much I love red enchantments with too much text. Yeah. I think this card's great. It's also, very hard to remove.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a land, and unless you're playing Wasteland in casual EDH or Strip Mine, it's going to be a dude again. It just is.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I like it a lot.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty unique way to do things, and there are a lot of ways to kind of ting your opponent out in red. We've talked about Kira negotiations before. You just tap a creature to deal 1 damage to a player. Cool, that's 4 now. Or you play Krenko Mob Boss, make a bunch of Goblin tokens, and now Perforos triggers for 4 instead of 2, and you clear the board out, or rather, you clear your opponents out really quickly. There are a lot of ways to kind of juice this. So I'm excited.
It's good.
Yeah.
I am also going with something that was printed recently, that being Spirebluff Canal from Outlaws of Thunder Junction, OTJ. The price history is insane on this card. If you just look at the Kaladesh printing, you'll see that it didn't really crater for the last time until the reprint hit.
Yeah.
But prior to that, it was a $10 card. This was one of the most played lands in Pioneer, Modern combined. Those are going to be the perpetual seasons we're in, along with Standard, which, guess what? This card is now in Standard. The reason I'm picking this is because it's like prime time. This card is going to be relevant to every competitive casual player, regardless of what format they play, for the next, till this rotates out of Standard, which I guess is, what, 2 years from now?
I think it might be 3.
3? Yeah. In that time, this card is going to go up. So right now we're basically at an all-time low of this card, not just for the Thunder Junction, but for the Kaladesh. But Thunder Junction is about $250 plus shipping. So you're
2 years, legal until Q4 2026.
Okay, so Q4 2026, 2 years. So right now it's about $4 all in. This is a card that should easily, as we go through the next couple of Pro Tour seasons, hit back at that $10 ceiling.
Yeah.
Or at a $10 floor. I think we could realistically see it in that $15 to $20 range again, despite the obvious surplus of quantity that got unloaded with Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Because the nice thing about this is, I believe there is a special treatment for OTJ.
Yeah.
So, okay. Regardless, this card has a pedigree. It has an insane pedigree, from Pro Tours to FNMs to EDH. I even know people that play this in 100 card formats because they're bad at the game.
That's mean.
Just don't play this card in EDH. Now, in terms of reprint equity, I thought it was going to be reprinted eventually when they were first printed, because they kept them specifically generic. It was something they mentioned in the design article, but it's taken 5 years for this card to see its first reprint. Longer than that, actually. It was 9, 8.
Don't ask me. I don't know.
2017. Yeah, 8 years for it to get its first meaningful reprint. And it only went up in price during that time before this reprint.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of quantity, this is a 4X card. I bought 20, and I'm going to sit on 20 because I got them for $80, basically. And there's no reason not to. The other thing to like about this card is if you look at the sales data on TCG, we're currently sitting at 297 listings. 40 copies a day is what we're averaging selling. That's insane.
Yeah.
Now, this quantity, this 297, is going to hover around a lot as people open product, as it gets traded in, as it gets listed. That's fine. We don't care. We just want to get this card while it's there and while it is at an all-time low. Multiple picks in the past that I've done have been, hey, this card's just coming off an all-time low. It's a great time to buy it because it has a history. This is another one of those cards. The one thing I will say about this is, timeline-wise, it's a little flexible. Like I said, we've got multiple Pro Tour seasons coming up where this card will be relevant. You've also got your red-blue players that just want to play red-blue in formats. Unfortunately, Iteration got banned, so that deck is gone, but whatever. I just think this is a really good look at this time, because it is something that I think a lot of people are just going to fly under the radar as like, oh, that card's too cheap, whatever, it doesn't matter, doesn't care. This card will go back up to its old price point. There's no reason for it not to. It should be a 4X in every blue-red X deck that it can be played in. Phoenix doesn't exist without this card. There are so many decks that just do not function without Spy or Bluff Canal in them. And that's why I'm picking this card.
Yep. No, I like these lands, and one for playability, and then 2 tradability, because people will always need these. And this set's going to exist in Standard for 2 years and 3 months.
Yep.
And in that time, we are going to pass a point where people stop caring about this set. So there will no longer be any of this card being opened. What's there is there. And so if there does be, if another Izzet deck does pop up in Standard to play, people are going to need this card. Phoenix is still a very good deck in Pioneer. If people want to move into that deck, or another as a deck pops up in Pioneer, people are going to need this card. So the only way for them to really acquire it is going to be through these copies, through Kaladesh copies. I really don't think we're going to get them printed again because of the lifespan they're going to have in Standard. Now, these and the Allied fast lands, which were introduced previously, right?
Yeah.
Plus, we have all the lands, the Surveil lands, right?
Yep, we have the Surveil lands as well.
We've got those, and we've got all 10 Pain lands. It's really hard to imagine that we upcycle any more of these for a fairly long time.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're going to get any more. That said, I do agree that now is probably the right time to buy in. We have about a month before Modern Horizons 3 hits, so there's probably only a couple more weeks where a lot of people with spare pocket change are going to throw money at this set to open. Once we get past MH3, we're going to have about another month and a half, where people who want to draft will probably cycle back around to this set because that's what is at the LGS. People enjoy this draft format, so we will have a constant infusion, though it's just going to be a dribble compared to the deluge that we had or are having right now as people are buying their boxes after release. Then we hit the next standard set, and I don't know if it's there or the one after that where people just ripcord out of OTJ and focus on something new.
Yeah.
So between now and then, I like these as a pickup. There could even be a point where heading into Modern Horizons 3, this gets a little bit cheaper as people shove to pick up what they need in terms of cash flow to buy Modern Horizons 3. So I think looking now into the next month at the price on this card and picking them up now is a fantastic option overall. There are not a lot of vendors that have a lot of quantity on this card, especially within the first...
Yeah, there's 2 pages that have 4 or more, if that.
Yep. Within the first 50 listings, there are only 65 copies. The largest quantity per vendor is 4 in that. And then, when you start filtering to 4 or more, it's like the largest you get is somewhere around 10 before the price gets outrageous. There's 10 at $4.30, free shipping. And that and then it just goes up from there. Then it's 14 at $5, then 22 at $6 for foils, right? This is where we go, and then we become a $10 card very, very quickly from there. So to your point, get in now, get as many as you need, get as many as you think you're going to need, because to your point, and I think this is important, this card has an immediate home in multiple formats.
Yep.
Heaven forbid the Ragavan decks come back in Modern. Then you will have 3 formats worth of pressure on this card, and you can't play the Is It Ragavan deck without this in Modern. It just don't work. We don't have that other lands to play yet. We have 1 dual land we can fetch, Steam Vents, and then we need a good land that ETB's untapped within the first 3 turns of the game and doesn't deal us damage. So Shivan Reef is out, and Spire Bluff is in.
Yep.
So I think this is and Spire Bluff is the easy call out. I think there are some other good ones here as well. And the blue-green stuff is always hard to pass on because you talked
Blooming
about...
Marsh, too.
Yeah. You talked about Breeding Pool how long ago? Like a month or 2?
Yeah, if that.
Right? The blue-green stuff, again, an easy pedigree. We have green-black, always expensive for whatever reason. So there's that. You can probably take a bath on the red, white, and the black, white ones for the time being.
Yeah.
But I would start here and work my way down the list too. Diversify. I don't think there's a reason not to either, right? So I think this is a really good call out. Individually, I think we should expand our scope a little bit just because we can, and I think it's worthwhile. And
agreed.
This is a really good look from the current standard set. I got nothing else to say. I'm going to spin out again. So
good catch.
Yeah. Anything else before we cut out, though?
Nope.
All right. So for at MtG Cabalcast on Twitter, Facebook, Patreon, and YouTube, I am at Halt I Am Reptar on Twitter. You are
at Damon_Thurston.
And we'll see you next week.